Hey, Gordon, we're going to have a little hike in the bush,
Yes.
look at a couple cedar trees, and talk about indigenous protocols to harvesting our materials that we need for our lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just head down this trail here and then just off to the right a little bit, then there's a nice little walk there.
Great.
Yeah, we can head down there.
Good.
Yeah, so anyways, Gordon, I'm really happy to, and Valine, really happy to be in the bush with you all. Looking at some of these old trees here for possibilities to make a canoe or a totem pole, or perhaps even material for a longhouse, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some sizes here that are really good. But here you can see that there's the old growth here. It has all ages of trees, but the ones that we are looking for are those larger red cedars back there. They look to be really tall and straight from here.
Yes.
So that one cedar there, look at that. It's got a bit of a screw arm on this side of it. Not very big, maybe good for a totem pole or something. Yeah, there's some here, and then there's one over there. There's actually a few of them in here. Beautiful for like sizes like those ones there. You have them for posts, maybe for a longhouse. I wanted to share with you also about the other parts of our cultural teachings. Do you ever go to those potlatches where they do those Tla-o-qui-aht dances? Those little birds. Heshklet are famous for doing that. And I know I've seen Shot do that dance too, but I think that in former days probably every tribe had their versions of that. Huh?
Yeah.
But anyways, my dad told me, and my grandfather, when we were carving canoes in the forest like this, would tell me to never cut wood in the spring or the summer because there's little birds that might be living there.
Yeah.
We can't see it, But now, this time of the year, there's no birds in these places, so it's safer and easier on the creatures that live here to cut them in the wintertime. The fall and wintertime only is what my dad and my grandfather said.
All in the time.
Yeah. So this is actually a good time of the year.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to come over and have a look at any of these with you.
I wonder if they would do it in the fall as well, because the tree would be more dormant and relaxed.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I think they chose those times
Yeah.
to cut a tree down. Once it's on the ground, they could work on it in the spring if they needed to, but they were probably busy doing other things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Always planning, always paying attention.
Sure, yeah.
And patience, just like you're saying, if they fall in the winter and then come back in the spring.
Yes. Yeah, so anyway, we'd have to, if we were deciding, say, even to use this, for example, to say we're going to
Yes.
decide to use this, what they do is go on the side that they would like to lay it down. Maybe you look over there.
Yeah.
Okay, we want to lay this thing that way. So what they would do is cut a big hole out of there like that and go right to the core just so they could see what's inside of there. And then if they're satisfied, maybe they go a little bit farther inside of there, and then they start chipping the wood away. From both sides of the hole, they can work this way and that way.
Okay.
Yeah. And the tree would come down this way.
Yeah.
And then with that big piece of holding wood on the back, it goes, and it doesn't go boing like the way they normally do.
Yeah.
Falling these days, it's really fast. But they go
More
gentle as possible.
more gentle and controlled.
Yeah. But sometimes what we'd have to do is, we'd have to commission our ancestors and stuff to fall a tree like that one, and maybe that other one over there. Fall it this way. If we were going to fall this thing that way, then that way is off the ground already. You don't got to work to get it up there. It's up there already.
And it would even contribute to cradling it as it lands.
Cushioning it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are the kind of things you got to plan to do that. But sometimes, you know, what people used to do in the former days, they would climb up the tree and notch it in way up there, and then they'd notch it in way down here. So I'd probably do the bottom one first and then the top one after. And then however, how the heck they did it, I don't know to this day. They would split the thing and put a log in there and just wait for the winds to work and let it fall.
Because the grain is so true and straight.
Yeah, they knew that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Beautiful wood like this. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll take a little while to get around these bushes. And I see the wind starting to pick up, so we shouldn't stay too long in here because there's some old snags here. Anyways, we have a quick look at this cedar tree right here. And it does have a bit of a screw-marm, and I think probably what had happened with that a long time ago, a tree fell down, maybe in wind like this.
Yeah.
It snapped off and it peeled off all the bark there. And that was probably about 30 years ago or so, 40 years maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this here cedar still may be suitable for, like, say, carving a totem pole or something.
Used
Yeah.
2/3 of it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So that's
But anyway, yeah, it's just one of those things where sometimes it looks really good from way over there, but when you come around and have a look at the base, then sometimes you got to look right underneath there too and walk all the way around to see if there's any more of those things.
Would your dad and ever like auger in sometimes too before
cutting it down? They would just, like I say, in the former days, they dug those holes, but then when they got those sweets out, they would just cut. And if the wedge was still okay, then they would cut back.
Continue, okay. I was mentioning on a cedar that I was choosing before I think it was my grandfather would talk about that. My grandfather and my uncle were talking about it when they were going to choose one for a canoe for the family for Sashat years ago. And we did that, but later on when I was selecting one for Tim and myself, we were selecting 2 cedars, and one of the ones looked, just flawless. And when I plunged into it, I just did a vertical plunge cut, and I got in maybe about a foot on this large cedar, and then the saw jumped in because it was a hollow center. So chose not to fall that one.
Yeah, it's just like that a lot. It's like, if you look at the tops, there's those branches that are dead. When they break off and they stick out for years, until the tree grows over it, then it rots in, and that rot travels down the inside. Yeah, anyways, we better go out of here because I'm not comfortable with these big, tall trees
in the wind,
whipping around like that in the wind. So, yeah, let's head out. The yew wood paddles, yeah, I gotta make those out of a nice straight piece of yew wood, about that big in diameter. You can cut 1, 2, 3 paddles out of one, usually. Yeah, it's best to make them out of yew wood, that nice and straight. Because sometimes when you have them bent like that, so the trees bend, you cut it, and sometimes you carve the wood and it bends on its own.
So how long would you dry it?
I don't know, they take a while, like everything else, but yeah, if you have them carved, you'd hang them straight up by the handle, rather than leaning them on the wall or something, or even laying it down. Because leaning it on the wall, it'll eventually bend that way. You take it and bend it the other way, eventually it'll go that way. It's funny like that.
Wow. And I remember you telling me that one time when you were selecting a few cedars and one landed on, you thought it would push over.
Yeah, those yew wood are really strong. This yew wood was only about that big in diameter at the butt. and I went out like that, and it was probably about from here to the top of that rock away from this cedar. I'll just fall down it, it'll pop that thing over. It fell on there and it was bouncing like that. I said, oh my God. So I put another one on there, so there's two of them now, they're going like that. Holy crow. I went and I finally took a third one and it's pow! It blew into a million pieces. Shrapnel everywhere. That's tough stuff.
Just, yeah, hard brittle almost, right?
Yeah, it can be very brittle too. I guess that probably must have, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 tons of weight on it to make it pop and break like that. Yeah, they're pretty strong.
So if we go back, if we get a chance to look at your canoe that you have in your shop, that's just what your grandfather always did, and he showed your dad, and his dad would have showed him.
Yes.
And
so they're basically, I don't know, teachings passed on from all our ancestors. And I think, when we look at our ancestors, it's Ishat, Ahozet, Hashbed, Haida, like you look at the hulls are basically the same. It's just the ends that are finished differently. Is about all.
So when you shape the bottom of it, what's the thickness, the depth that you're usually going from the bottom of the hull to going along to the wall?
That varies depends on the size of the canoe. Say like a 22-foot canoe, it only needs to be about 2.5 inch or so on the bottom, and up to 2 inches on the side. But in actuality, it's not really 2 inches because it loses a 1/4 inch when you take that little lip on the outside. So, and then it varies from 2 inches to 1 3/4 and then back to 2 or whatever, yeah. So to get all those uniform, you have to use a bunch of plugs in the middle at the strategic places along the hull and the sides. And yeah, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plugs you'd have to put in.
From center on one side?
That would be, yeah, I guess 3. 3 from each side.
Okay.
3 from the center.
Okay.
Yeah.
So center?
Center, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4 actually. Okay. Yeah, there's 4 from the center.
And we'll be able to see that on we'll be able to point them out on
that canoe in the shop. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's not painted yet.
Yes. And that canoe in the shop, unfortunately, is made flat grain. You know how you have the log like that? Yeah. And the hull is made here and comes up the side like that. Had to do that because there was a big amount of rot right in the middle of that. And so we didn't really want to go and fall another tree. It was, that one was down and we cut into it already. And it'll serve its purpose for a while, and that one is kind of like a high maintenance canoe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's because the grain over the years, the grain will...
Well, in the sunlight, if it gets a lot of moisture content and it dries in the sunlight really quickly, it'll crack. Yeah, it'll crack in 15 minutes.
Yeah. And I guess when I first, years ago when I first met you, and you pointed out the other method with the keel, the bottom being
right at the core.
Right at the core.
Yeah.
And then you get all that edge grain. Right away, I just thought of how much faster it must cut through the water, because even just the flat grain would have a little bit more resistance in the water. That's what came to mind when you shared that with me years ago.
Yeah, true. The edge grain like that also, it dries much quicker than flat grain. It will not crack even in direct sunlight.
Direct sun, yeah.
It really makes a big difference. There's a lot less to take care of it.
Yeah. Well, when you shared that with me, and the travel journeys in the house. Is that 99?
Holy crow, was it that long ago?
98? 99, I think.
Huh.
He shared that with me. And it changed my way of thinking about masks and carving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Just
Cool.
for it to be more stable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's a canoe over there at the Museum of Anthropology at UBC in Vancouver. And that canoe, I think that when it was made, it was probably made nice and straight like that. But because what people have had here, you get a log, and sometimes this section of the tree is much drier than this side. So over the years when that thing was made, it was probably made nice and straight and equal on both sides. But over about 100 years, it's been sitting inside in that controlled environment. It's worked over like that. It went very slowly, but it worked over like that. Now that it's almost banana shaped like that.
Yeah.
Now, I do know that that has happened in canoes that I have made also. You know, when people want them dry, because, you know, back in the days, our ancestors never had that. We used them. They were meant to be in the water, so they were not getting dried out like
Yeah,
this.
they're
you know?
stable.
So when I've had a couple of canoes that I put the bow stem straight on like that, and then, of course, it worked over like that, just a little bit. But I can see it, and other people can't. They just look at it. But I'm always looking at them so I can see that it's twerked a little bit.
Has it twerked more with it being flat grain or edge grain? Have you noticed that?
It just would depend on the side of the log that was wet. Say like this side's wet and the side dry. It happens quite often like that. Especially, you know, on the south side where the branches broke off and all that water stays in there. It doesn't get drawn out anymore through those branches that would normally would. But that side is wetter, so when it's sitting like that, if you have it in water all the time, no problem. But if you take it and dry it, it'll eventually bend over like a banana shape.
Right.
And that's what I've noticed about a lot of those masks I've seen in museums, you know, and they were commenting on how small they were. But I say back in the day, this mask when it was made was probably this big. But it's been sitting in the museum for over 100 years now, it's this big. Even losing like an inch and a half, even like going like that over all this time. I think that because when I've seen those harpoons that were made, they were that fat.
Yeah.
And they were lashed together. But now over the years, that lashing is still like that, but the harpoon is only like that now. So it's lost a lot of diameter. Have you seen the ones like that in Victoria?
Yeah. Yeah. And then in New York
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
I haven't been to New York City yet. Maybe I'll go there next time.
It's a concrete jungle.
Yeah.
Concrete jungle.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next projects coming up, and you'll learn. I teach people about things, but certainly I learn from as much from them as I do teaching. I really like it. Like even the last canoe that I worked on, just the way individuals do things. Sometimes they'll do a little thing as well. That really makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like well, like I said, I've told people I was fortunate enough to be part of your guys' whole project this past summer for your family and your community. And yeah, you're very relaxed and still allowing yourself to be the student as well, just like you're saying right now, which is always great.
Okay, Joe. Just wanted to get some of your teachings in regards to the canoe, and we touched on when we were out on the mountainside in regards to when you're selecting the cedar, and then when you're, I've always been so impressed on the ancestors and how they would came up with the method of having the hull of the canoe the same thickness, and how you've still used that, and then you've even adapted and evolved with using some of the power tools. So if you want to share anything on in regards to that aspect of the canoe?
Well, one of the first and foremost things is to keep the center line. Like if you had on the back end, and you have to hang a rock down from here to there, and that should be right in line with that, and same on the back, and that way it keeps the whole thing right centered, huh? both ends, and that's really important because to get the shape of the hull all even. And once you get the hull shape, then yeah, you got to drill in strategic locations. You can drill the holes right along the where the keel is, and then on each side, because it goes from really narrow, it goes out wider, and it goes back again. So there's 1, 2, 3, and those ones on the bottom, they're all like, for something like this, probably about 2.5 inch or so, and then the sides are 2 inch. 2 inches thick, so it goes from 2 to 2.5 to 2 inch, and then it turns up like that. And there was a good reason for doing that kind of thing, was for the uniform thickness of a hull, so that when you bend it, it bends evenly. It goes like that, because if one side is softer, it bends more, and it can put the whole thing out of whack.
Right. So 2.5 inches, but so what is the length of this canoe?
This one here, normally what people would do before would be go by arm length, like from here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 arm spans. Yeah, for something like that. And then of course they would do the same here before we had measuring tapes. They would use their hands. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and it varies. So they would have learned how to do that from like their ancestral teachings, people, and then the thickness of a hull would be like that or whatever. The bottom would be like that, and the side would be like that, or whatever, something like that.
Mm.
So, use that, you can use your nose.
Yeah. So, in the steaming process, and the bow and stern are added on before that step is done. I always, I guess I was thankful that you shared the just seeking out the right stones for that step. Making sure that you don't have a whole lot of dots on them, because they want to crumble more.
Oh yeah, the black rocks as opposed to the speckled ones.
Yes.
The speckled ones, they get them right hot, you put them in the water, they turn back into sand.
Right. Yeah.
The solid black ones, they hold heat a lot longer than even the lava rocks, I think.
Right.
Really? The lava rocks, they get really hot, but then when they're having all that water hit them really quickly, then I feel they cool off quicker.
Okay. Maybe because they're not as dense?
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because yeah, you know how you lift one rock and it feels heavier, more dense than the other one. So
yeah, 2 rocks the same size of the lava and the solid rock. The solid rock will be heavier, of course.
Yeah. Okay. And then to kind of pause that for a moment, and then talk about say a totem pole. When we were looking at some of the cedars, the time of year that you select it, go and look for it, and when you fall it, and then just getting it off the mountainside. Historically, they would have, done somewhat similar of what you're still doing today.
Yeah, except that they would have a lot more people around back then. They would probably have maybe just tell 20 or 30 guys to come on up tomorrow. We're going to start pulling this thing out, and they would probably all be able to do that, move that log. They'd trim it down, of course, and then haul it out. They'd kind of choose a path for it to go out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff always fascinates me, and how they would have done that. But I have had, help with people that came to bring a canoe out of the forest. I thought we were going to slide all the way down. It's going to take us 2 or 3 hours, but when they all arrived, it took us 20 minutes. get it down the hill.
Wow.
Yeah, they just put it on their shoulders and walk down. It's wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Similarly, in Paul River was carving that canoe. There was it was like that wide on the top end, and it was about that thick, and it was the same length as this thing here. I was getting it jacked. I was gonna ready and turn it over, but there's all these people that were standing around. Hey, all of you, come over here, shoulder to shoulder. 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I look at that kind of stuff, thinking about, you know, back in the day, people would have been able to do that.
Yeah.
With a lot of different things.
Yeah. Well, we did it with the pole earlier this year. You know,
Yeah.
we were talking about just we had enough help that showed up, and we just flipped it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's always really nice to have that. I think, you know, by and large today, a lot of people do enjoy doing that kind of thing. Just come on and help move something big like that. I like doing it.
Yeah, be a part of it. Yeah. Is there anything that you feel would be important to share? Like you did touch on, like, you know, with somewhat the obvious shapes of the bow and stern. You know, explaining, like, you know, I think it's important and it's great, and I think it was done just like you've shared too. It was done in the past of how you would go in. You've been in a number of communities now, Coast Salish and Claudia communities, and teaching and informing and helping it, those nations to, you know, learn how to make a seaworthy canoe, a safe canoe.
Yeah, those things have been really, really fun. I've been able to do that with Quagule and Coast Salish. Carved the canoe right in the forest with them, hauled the canoe out, and then brought it over to Salt Spring Island and finished it there. That was really amazing, just having all those people come and help pull that thing out.
Yeah.
That's always so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, of course, the carving of a canoe is, for me, I love the whole thing, including pulling it out, because we get to meet all these other peoples that come from everywhere else. And even from those things, I can learn stuff from other people just because of how people work things. You know, everyone's different.
Yeah.
And sometimes they have a really awesome way to move things. Yeah, I learned from you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, you know?
Yeah, it's always great to have those gifts of, like, when someone's, whether they're purposely showing you or they're just, that's what they're doing, and then you're observing and you're able to.
That's why I love canoes, because, you know, without the canoe on the coast here, none of this knowledge would have passed over so easily.
Yeah.
But because these canoes were there, they were like a transfer of knowledge anyways to other communities. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the best things with these things, and that how all this knowledge came about.
Yeah.
For all these different cultural aspects of our peoples.
Yeah, there was elder up north talking about how historically there would be, like, say, if you, when, like, number of years ago, must have been about 8 or 9 years ago, you were in Sashat carving a canoe. You know, if you and your brother and your nephew were there, you know, we have this payment method now of today, but historically what this elder shared was there was a payment method of, like, the value of what you're teaching, like, say, what I was able to learn being in Sashat, spending time there, it would have been like, okay, you and your brother and your nephew are gonna come and carve a canoe for us, but you're also gonna teach these other 4 Sashat individuals. But we wanna thank you and acknowledge your talent and your gift by, we're gonna send, you know, 6 men to Tla-o-qui-aht to help your family and your nation, because it was a valuable thing that you're bringing to our community. So I always, when I heard that, I always thought that was great. And it's maybe a way for, you know, that would be cool if we can look at that in some ways too sometime. You know.
That would be really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think back in the days of our ancestors when they lived in Tla-o-qui-aht here in Tla-o-qui-aht, and my mom's ancestors in the Ihats and so on. Back in those days, you know, they all knew how to do that. Like, you know, we are forgetting about our about 10,000-year history of the village of Hopisit alone. That's only one village, and I know there's probably more on the coast here. But in that time, all that knowledge had transferred from these vessels all up and down the coast, where people knew how to do this kind of stuff. That's been transferring all along.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think those things are really incredible. And people didn't have a choice to go or not. Because if you were a male born in the house and you had to learn. You're learning to do this or do other things.
Yeah. Your role in the community, in the village. Yeah. I've talked with other artists and friends, and they're, you know, some of the, at least for myself too, that we put some pressures on, at least I put some pressures on myself to try and do more and create more and study more and, you know, just be open to learn. But then, you know, we live in today's society of, you know, having to, you know, still go out and hunt and fish. And like my role as an artist, I'm not solely an artist. You're not solely a canoe maker, because you need to buy groceries. You know, no one's really going to be bringing you a deer or some whale meat to because you back then you could just focus on a canoe if that was your role in the community.
Yes, people had different roles because they were taught, and people were able. I suppose it was kind of like we have the equivalent of the Montessori schools, and then the traditional schools that children are sent to nowadays. And the Montessori school, I think, was more along the lines of how our people would let those kids learn what they want to learn. But of course, I think that, you know, there was a lot of different ways that people would do that. They just watched them, and when they were growing up, the elders and so on already knew of their characters, thus were named a certain way, according to their role.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really fun doing these things and steaming them. You got to get them off the ground like that, and then you what they do is put a block right here, and then they make a really nice long tapered wedge. Be about that thick on the end, but it'd be about that long and be really nice and tapered. And carefully tap that in or push it in until they had to start hammering it in. Once the thing was really hot, then the ends would open like that.
Huh. I didn't know that part.
No.
No. The long wedge? I didn't know that. Because
a long wedge, because now I use a jack.
Now you use the jack. Yeah. I never really, you know, when you explained that to me years ago, I never even thought of going back to thinking of like, yeah, okay, they would lift each end, but I didn't think of like, yeah, lifting it evenly with the long wedges. But it makes sense, for sure.
And tack it in gently. Because if you go too fast, it go poof, can crack it. So it has to go gently.
Right.
Yeah, those folks learn how to do all that stuff, so it's passed along the coast somewhere.
Yeah. So when you were younger, did you and Carl use the wedges, or you and your dad?
I only started doing it after I started building larger canoes. First time I steamed a canoe was over there at Echachist. And was that canoe that Giselle has now. It's 34 feet, and it was 48 inch in width. Turned out to be 54 inches.
Wow.
So it opened up like what, 6 inches?
6 inches. Wow. And you guys used wedged on that?
No, I use a jack.
Oh, that's what you use, the jack.
But still, that was the first time I ever did that. But my dad would tell me how to do it. I said, okay, you just got to use a jack and go.
Yeah.
Hydraulic jack's what I used at the time.
Yeah.
Did that in Hawaii too, and every time when people would jack on the ends, you could see it would go out like that.
Yeah.
And all these people were there and said, wow, what's amazing is watching a fruit,
Yeah.
on like that.
And what wood was that?
A type of wood called albizia, type of mahogany, imported into Hawaii from the Philippines. And they don't like it because it smells, it stinks.
Yeah. It's quite impressive that it's still, you were able to use that same formula, that same method on that hardwood. It was a hardwood, right?
It's not really a hardwood. It's kind of a little bit harder than cedar, of course, but not that much harder.
Oh, okay.
Now this hull here is mostly completed, and the only thing that needs to happen with it now is to singe the hull black. Is how our people would do that in the former days. And what that does is it hardens the wood, plus it also makes it less palatable for the sea bugs to eat it. You know, it's like, I don't like burnt toast, do you?
Nope.
So the bugs don't like burnt wood either.
Yeah.
So, and it makes it harder too. I suppose toast gets harder too when you burn it.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, that's the next thing I would do with this here is singe it black. I thought I had some of those shavings around, but what they would do, like if you can feel this here, we had some shavings from cedar, and how they would smooth this out later is they just take those shavings and just rub it. And it's incredible. A lot of people are really blown away about how smooth that can get just by rubbing and using shavings on there rather than a sandpaper, because it just makes it so smooth.
Yeah. I never really understood how my grandfather would say that they would use cedar boughs, but I guess that's the same or similar thing. He said they would rub it with cedar boughs. His uncles and his dad. After they scorched it, after they burnt it. Yeah.
Because there's not always shavings around, so I have to use something.
Yeah.
Plus the oil from the cedar boughs would also give it a little bit of a sheen.
Oh, right, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right.
Yeah, so, you know, that's what they would do that, and then they paint this here, one here, the two stripes here is just my own personal thing, but I know different people had different ways to do this. They'd put one here, another one here, and then they'd paint white dots in there, whatever.
Yeah.
However they would finish that.
Yeah.
They'd do that in the front and the back.
So this, I think I was talking with my uncle about this years ago. I was wondering if this was to stop the rope from going under the canoe when they harpooned a whale.
I don't think so, but
No?
could be. I don't know. I always think that was just a decoration thing, just to make those white lines stick out more.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We have them in the back too, but it doesn't extend out like that.
Yeah. I was just wondering why this was always here.
I said, why do I put that out? And I was like, okay, I'll put it on.
Yeah, that's one thing I was wondering, if the whale churned, the rope would be able to churn the bow of the canoe.
Tip you over too.
True.
Yeah.
True.
All right, here I've brought you to show this harpoon that I've made. It's made of a yew wood. See pieces of wood that are here. There's 3 different pieces. There's the middle one, and then there's the back and the front. But they're spliced so that they're on different. I don't know how to explain it other than a different plane. Because if you look at it like that, you see there's one plane like that.
Yeah.
And then that piece there in the front, it's got this plane. Oh, it's got this one here. And the back one has the other one is like that.
Yeah.
So there's 1, 2, 3. And the people a long time ago said it was better to make it out of 3 pieces. They said you could find a piece that you could make a harpoon out of 1 piece, but it's not as good because of what will happen. Because they said if you take a bow and arrow, right, you let it fly, it goes bang, it does that. But they figured out that if you take it and make it out of 3 pieces, what happens, it concentrates more power in the tip, and enabling that tip to go right penetrate right into the whale bones.
Right.
And they would basically throw that from about maybe 15 feet or 20 feet from the whale that they were paddling beside. They'd have that, and the guy would throw that thing, and it would hit the whale right here when it's turning over on its side like that. And sometimes what would happen is that harpoon would go right to the heart and would kill it instantly.
Wow.
But other times it wouldn't. It would just go in. But then, yeah, and then that was when all of those guys in the canoe all had to act together and know what they're expected to do.
So the 3 pieces of yew with that locking method, which just reminds me of somewhat of how the bow is fastened to the canoe sometimes.
Yeah, they're almost
they're
like
similar.
that. Mhm.
Yeah. And then the tip, the materials of the tip.
This tip here is actually it's elk horn antler, and they were fashioned together like that and tied together. There's 1 and 2 here, and then the other pieces. This here, in the former times, would have been made from sinew of an animal.
Right.
Like I think they said they used to take the really carefully cut back part of the whale. Then they would find that sinew and they would carefully strip that and make a really long piece out of it.
Wow.
And then the other really important part is the mussel shell, like that. Then they would fit that and carry that in there. And then you can see how it's bent like that.
Yeah.
See that? And then they would take it and then put that sap on. It would go like that. It would match that. And then it would go from there to there. So it would match,
Yeah.
go like that, and would cover it over this. And that way it would make a smooth entry.
Right. So this concave would be able to
Yeah, first they would hold that back and then put that sap in there.
Okay.
And when it's warm, once it cools off, it hardens quickly.
Yeah.
And then so they'd take that and go there, and then they'd take the other side and go like that. So they made a nice even entry into that. So you can see that, you know, if it's dynamic, like, I don't know, aerodynamic if you want,
Sure. Okay.
it would make it go in. And this here width of this here is actually the same as there.
Okay.
You know, just so that when the harpoon went right in,
Oh,
that
okay.
it's not going to be any wider. Of course, when it's that hole, and then this comes out, and that holds, and then this goes sideways like that. And that's why this here was actually important to come off. Otherwise, it could cut its way out.
Ah.
It turned it, and could cut its way out. Of course, it would make a whale bleed a lot more.
Yeah.
But they don't want to lose it.
Huh. I didn't think they would want that to come off, but yeah, that's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they said that if it's the metal ones, they will cut out
Yeah.
because the whale's taken off.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it would be attached to just one float.
No, there'd be a length of rope. It would be just slightly longer than this, and then there would be a sealskin float, because the guy would hold that coil of rope and the harpoon, and he'd throw that all at once, and then the float would go, and of course it'd be there once the harpoon hit. And of course the whale's moving. As soon as it hit, the whale would go, "Ooh, what the hell is that?"
Yeah.
And then, you know, he'd be hit. And so then all the people in the canoe all had to pay attention. You all have to be here now, not thinking about when it's high tide tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah.
You got to be here, and then you got to pay attention to your job to be able to catch that thing.
So after this is thrown, would it come apart?
No, the entire harpoon stays together. It would be bound together here
Okay.
with sinew,
Yep.
and then there too.
Okay.
Sometimes people have been puzzled to come here. How in the hell do they keep that together? By tying it together with sinew or something.
and probably the glue as well.
No, I think they would have it like that. Only
Okay.
no glue, and they're just tied together like that.
Okay.
I've seen some specimens in the museum could see when it was tied together it was like that fat, but now it's like that.
Diameter.
Yeah, it became a lot smaller. Yeah, so the first part of rope, the rope was made out of sinew of other animals, and then the other part was made with cedar bark.
And
Nice fat cedar bark, about that thick.
yeah.
And so they have coils of it in the canoe, and what they would have in a canoe, inside of the canoe, would be those baskets that were made from this kind of thing, like these withies here.
All
Because you go along the shore where like along the rocks, and especially on the western shore, because what happens is, when the sun is shining on the water, it reflects up, so they reach down to the sunlight and it goes like that, and you can get them like really, really long.
okay.
And then they would take those and split those and make baskets out of them.
Okay.
So you'd have baskets about this big, maybe about that deep, with all that rope in, so it doesn't tangle on your feet.
And the sinew length, I guess that would somewhat vary, but was it usually as long as the harpoon, or
Yeah, maybe a little bit longer.
a little longer?
Yeah, maybe twice as long, but I don't really know that.
Okay.
Like I say, it varied probably.
Yeah. Yeah. What I heard is elders say that part of that preparation too, they would put down
Yeah, inside of their.
inside here. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to share a story with you about a macaw, or the Tla-o-qui-aht from Neobay. They were over at Hupitsit. What they were doing is they were tsias for a wife for one of their young men growing up. And so they were there, and they were Tla-o-qui-aht had never answered them for 4 days. They were out in a canoe. They're all the relatives of that person who they were tsias for, all sitting there, and they never listened to them. So the 4th day they came down, and they had this cedar log on the beach. Told them, tide, when tide come back in, they can come closer. So take this harpoon, and if you can throw that harpoon and split that log with one hit, we'll let you ashore. So those folks from Neobay, one of the guys got that harpoon and like this, and threw that thing, and then boom, it hit that log like that, and it didn't split. So the Tla-o-qui-aht, they threw that guy overboard. So the next guy took that thing, and he took that, and he threw that, wow, and poof. So I talk about the perhaps connection that our people had to the supernatural through those songs and dances we sing, those Hinkitum dances, and that's what they were about. My dad used to tell me about those things. That's what they're for. It wasn't just a pretty song and dance to look at. It was evoking the power through her women and onto her leaders. Yeah, so anyways, the other things about U-wood, the people would make paddles out of. This one here is cedar. I used to have some U-wood paddles, and they were made exactly the shape of this, but the young fellow that was making this, he never came back. So it's been over a year, and he didn't quite finish it. And so, well, I guess I have this paddle around now. So anyway, they would be made sharp like a knife, like when you look at it, went from the side like that, right down sharp like that. And then they would take that and singe it black in the fire like that. And that would harden the edges, and so that if you're paddling, you all have a weapon. If that whale attacks you, then you have a weapon to defend yourself. So it was actually a dual purpose thing. It was a paddle, plus it was also a weapon. Yeah, so you paddle or that high, right off your chin.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks don't know that, but this paddle length, right from your armpit to the end of the handle here, is like that. And then the rest of that is to the ground.
Yeah, I know my grandmother would say that one, but I didn't know the under the arm.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
The other thing I would make out of the U-wood was the killing lance. And I've seen one in the museum, and it was really nicely made round, and then it went down kind of like a sword, and when it was really nice and sharp, and when once a whale was harpooned, and just before they'd kill, what a guy would do is jump onto the back and he'd wiggle that thing and go down into the heart. And whoa. Wow.
I'm always amazed at that, being able to get to that point, that stage, with all of this preparation, all of this preparation, all of this preparation, and then now you need to be able to keep it afloat. So you want to share how they kept it afloat.
They'd have all these other sealskin floats in the canoe, and while they're going along, if they had other spare ones that were in there, then they would blow those up. And just before the guy jumped onto the back, one guy jumped in to sew the mouth shut. He'd have a U carved needle about that long, really nice one. It was tapered and right sharp like a needle, and he'd take and shove that through the lip and then tie a rope on it. And then the other guys, while that was happening simultaneously, would dive under and then put sealskin floats here and here and here and here, and as many as they had left, and maybe take the other ones off the line, off the whaling line, and then tie those on to that thing as well, just to prevent it from sinking. Because it will sink at first, but after maybe a few hours, it floats on its own because of the gases inside. Yeah, a couple of winters ago, I don't know, when I was finishing this thing, it was still in progress. I come down here a little bit depressed, and I didn't remember what the hell for, but I picked this up and I started working on it. The day went by, and I figured, what the hell was I all depressed about? What the hell? Just come down and do this. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I like doing this stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's important. It's important to keep it moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so anyway, these here tips here, I'm just going to walk up here and show you this here. They are squared off, and now if you follow back this over to here, it's squared just so that it doesn't turn in there. So it's sitting in there and it's square and it's solid.
Locks.
Yeah. So when it hits, the harpoon comes out and this stays inside. Yeah, so anyways, I really enjoyed doing this stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind finding 3 more pieces of yew wood to do this with.
Yeah.